This is Brett with Streamline and Stronger. I have with us today, I have a really great couple guests, and that is Jason Sprenkle and Ashley Horsley. And they're from 360 Blue, and this is also from Key Data. And Ashley is the CEO of 360 Blue, and Jason is the CEO of Key Data. We've got some really, and they're both involved. They're both actually owners of 360 Blue, so we are in very good shape when it comes to good knowledge from the property management side and also from the data side. We're very excited about this second episode because we sort of got our feet wet and we want to tell good stories right now. We really think that our industry, there's so much content going on right now about the coronavirus and what everybody's going through. We want to mix this one up a little bit. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on data. We'll touch on strategies to overcome the problem. But we also just want to hear a great story. And that's why we are very happy to have this group here as well. And we do have Mike, if you see him in the background in the studio. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I wanted to give a quick profile of 360 Blue. And for some reason, it looks like the screen's on Mike. So I just want to make sure if it has the ability to switch over, try it. But regardless, I wanted to go ahead and get started. So we'll go ahead and look at the profile of 360 Blue. And we have basically a company here based out of 30A and Destin, and it's essentially a company that has 637 properties. They have recently acquired St. Joe at 225 properties, and also a company in Breckenridge, which was called Bookbreck. And this is a company that had in the 20s amount of properties, and they're really excited, I think, to have that destination as well. So this is another company that's a family-run business, and obviously we have partners with Jason and Jeremy and Ashley running the ship over there. I did want to start off by asking you all, and maybe this goes to Jason, this question. Tell us sort of the beginning. How did it start? How did you get going? How did you sort of get from, however many properties you first had to 637 properties?
Yeah, well, appreciate it. First of all, let me say, really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and talk a little bit about it. I always enjoy our conversations, and nice to be able to kind of share our stories. So thank you for the opportunity. Ashley, how many years ago did we start? I always goof this up. We're 10 or 12 years old, and I think we're in the 12, right? It really started with my brother. He and a partner of mine who used to practice law, a guy named Patrick McCarthy, who a lot of people will remember from the vacation rental circuit back in the day, had the idea to start a vacation rental business. We had just finished developing properties. We were building high-end condos down on the coast in Destin and then 30A, and the market turned on us, as everybody will recall, like the last financial crisis we had before the current one. And it became clear that a lot of the people who had bought properties from us were in a position where, with the financial downturn, they needed to start renting those properties. And so we did, for our own properties, like a lot of people did, we found the closest vacation rental company and put our own properties that we had out with those companies. And at the time, it was a very non-service driven atmosphere. It was drive to the closest vacation rental company and follow their rules or be kicked off the program. And my brother had come from the restaurant background and was just a very service employee oriented guy, and decided to stick his feet in. So he started managing our properties. That was right when VRBO and the OTAs had started to hit. And he figured out, just from a timing perspective, that you could do it a little bit more efficiently than what people were doing in the market currently. And friends started to ask Jeremy if, they could list their properties with him. And as it grew to a few dozen properties, I came over, like big brothers have a habit of doing, to tell him how he ought to be doing things. And he said that was the day that the company turned in the wrong direction. Just started helping him out. And we grew just by word of mouth. We knew we didn't know what we were doing at the beginning, and we were just trying to have the right answer for customers and be that guests or owners. And spent the first few years, with Jeremy hanging out on the back deck, getting to know owners and getting to know guests, and really not trying to intentionally grow, just trying to take customer service first and see where it took us. And that took us a couple of years down the road, and then we had the benefit of running into Ashley one day.
Well, we did want to welcome Ashley. We think she's a wonderful CEO for your company. We're going to talk about the overall, I guess, strategy and coping mechanisms around this. But I've been to your office, I've been to your headquarters, and you guys have an amazing culture there. And we do want to talk about that. First, let me ask you, because last time I was there, the office was under construction. I was just getting to see a little bit of it. Why don't you tell us how it came out? It was a really amazing facility, and I can sort of see you've got your backdrops, some cool wood backdrops and good backdrops. I'm sure this thing was very well designed.
Yeah, Jeremy really was the person that spearheaded that effort because he came from the restaurant industry and wanted to make it feel like it was a comfortable, relaxing environment for everybody to be in. So he kind of took the reins on the design of the space and gave it a very trendy restaurant feel. So our common space is a big U-shaped bar where we all meet and hold our team gatherings, and we have several large conference rooms and individual office spaces. So yes, it's done and we love it, but we're continuing to grow. And so we're constantly having to go in and build a wall here or take down a wall there and kind of revise our space to accommodate our growth, which is a good problem to have. So it's kind of an ever-changing work in progress is kind of what it's ended up being. But it's a fun environment, and I think people enjoy coming to work here just because it does kind of have a cool feel.
It did have a really cool feel, and I remember where we talked technology. We had like a sort of like this den lounge room also, where it was a very comfortable place. So I hopefully can come back there and see it someday. I did want to bring up something that I felt was inspiring, which was your charity and the Saunder Project. And I think it's always important to talk about giving and goodwill, especially right now in this type of time, to where so much of that is needed, so much teamwork, so much collaboration, so much goodwill and charity and being selfless. So why don't you guys chime in on, tell us a little bit about the Saunder Project. And the website for that is thesaunderproject.org if you want to check it out. But why don't you take it away on that?
Sure. Jason, you want me to take that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So Jeremy, Jason, and I met several years back, probably 5 or 6, maybe even 8 at this point, to figure out a way that we could give back. And it started with our local community, and we've partnered with some great organizations that are locally based and do some great work, particularly in our own backyard and our own communities. But one area that I was particularly personally very passionate about, and I think Jeremy and Jason became very passionate about also, was also the need or the want to give back internationally as well. We live in an amazing community, but it does sometimes feel a little bit like its own bubble. And so a lot of the people that come through here have either lived in this community or a community like it. And we wanted to be able to share that there was a whole world that existed outside of this little community bubble. So we decided to start a nonprofit called the Saunder Project. Saunder means the realization that everybody has a story, and really found that we were all three very passionate, particularly about education and access to clean water. So primarily our organization has done work in Burkina Faso, which was just kind of a country that we landed on because it had an extremely high need for both of those things. And then we fell in love with the culture and the community there, and some of the people and relationships that we formed there became very important to us as well. And so the majority of our work has to date been in the country of Burkina Faso, and we have built a number of schools and a number of wells. I'm going to butcher the numbers, but it's somewhere around 11 schools and somewhere around 17 wells. And that number, I know we just built 2 wells over the last couple of months and providing access to clean water. We expedited those processes, particularly in light of coronavirus, so that we could get clean water to those communities as quickly as possible.
And Ashley left out my favorite part of the story, which is she came in that transition between walking in the door and answering phones and becoming CEO. As you can imagine, those of you who know her, was a very short-lived transition. And it became clear that she had a deep passion for food insecurity in particular, and just kind of giving back. And we heard whisperings of her going out to change the world, and quickly realized that we were going to lose our new CEO if we didn't decide to change the world together. So it was certainly her passion that inspired us, and we all kind of came along for the ride after really figuring out what moved us the most. But it's been incredible for the company as well, and kind of just pulling us all together behind a common cause, and been very rewarding.
I absolutely love it. I was on your website, well, that website for the SaunderProject.org earlier, and I got chills looking at some of the pictures. And it wasn't just the soccer field that I saw, because I'm a soccer player. That was really cool. But it was also the part where people were holding hands and in a big circle, and you can just tell that you make a real difference on people's lives. And I really wanted to make sure we talked about that during this broadcast, because it's so impressive, and hopefully it inspires others to do the same type of work, whether that's locally, whether that's internationally. Right now, especially helping out communities is important. Let's pivot a little bit and let's, I guess, pivot back to Ashley, because she obviously is someone who's passionate about goodwill, but also I think being one of the great female leaders of our industry. This industry is very impressive to me, and how many female leaders we have. I was very fortunate and humbled to speak in front of, 300 females at the women's conference in New Orleans. I don't typically get nervous when I speak in front of people in public, but this one was tough, speaking in front of 300, 400 women. And it was just so good to see so many female leaders out there. And I wanted to ask Ashley, I mean, you've obviously become something special for a very special company. And if you could maybe give some words to advice to other females out there looking to make the charge.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. You nailed it. We are working in an industry where there are a lot of women in the business. And I think that's something that we should be incredibly proud of, is that we have an industry that's so supportive of women in leadership roles. And I think that we should just continue to encourage that and get the women together like they did with the women's conference, and continue to motivate and encourage women to take on these leadership roles, and be the example to other women as to how you can really even come in at entry level like I did with a company, and work hard, prove yourself, and be able to take control or take the leadership positions.
How would you, if you were to give one piece of advice to someone, what is the one piece of advice that you think made you successful in your career? Like the one thing that stands out above the rest?
So I have always taken the approach that you should never be the smartest person in the room. And I stand by that. I think that you should surround yourself with people that are smart and capable, and people that offer good, sound advice. And I have leaned on those resources and those people. And that's the reason why our company is where it is.
Well, I would also like to chime in that I think you are a very tough person. I've met you a few times, and you scare me a little bit sometimes. Tell how tough you are.
Me too.
So that's that. It's funny. Our CEO at Streamline says similar things about surrounding yourself with the best people, and I think that's a great leadership trait for everyone to take away. So thank you for that. I did want to ask you, I mean, I was talking to Jason earlier, and we talked about how moments like this with the coronavirus, with these challenges that we're facing, sort of define you, right? And have an opportunity to help define you, let's say. Some of the things that you've done as CEO, Ashley, as part of this, adaptation process or coping process with employees, with your team, with your owners, with your guests. Why don't you shed some light on some of the things you've been doing?
Sure. So this is an unprecedented time. There's no template or path on how to get out of this successfully. So it's really just been a one day at a time approach. But some of the things I've tried to do and implement from the very beginning, and something that really I strive to do all the time, is have very open and clear communication across the board. So not only with our homeowners and our guests, but also with our internal team, and letting them know exactly where we are. We are a company that's extremely open. We don't have secrets. I don't have a secret sauce that I, am hiding. I will share any information that I think will help the industry and any other business leader, regardless of the industry. And so we take that same very transparent approach internally, which I think has helped a whole lot. We've stayed on top of the information as it's been provided to us, and then we very quickly turned that information around and passed it along to our owners, our guests, and our team internally as well. And trying to plug in as much, inspiration and motivation as we can as well. And then when it comes to the decision making, it's been a very reactive process, because you can't really plan for what information is going to come because it's so rapidly changing. But we have tried consistently to do the next right thing, one thing at a time. And because we've taken that very deliberate approach to everything as it comes in front of us, I think that we will be able, at the end of this, to look back and not have regrets.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're right. You can't prepare or somehow have I think that Jody Rafosco, who was our last guest, and another great, female leader, by the way, in the industry, she mentioned there's no playbook for this, and it's something that maybe there will be. She claims she's going to write one on the last show. So I think that's a good idea. But I do think that right now it's like adapt mode, right? And I think we're good at that in this industry. So the faster you can adapt and communicate is critical. And that's why you see so many companies in this industry starting, different platforms that we can all talk. And I do want to speak to Jason a little bit, because you have a history when it comes to experience. And when I say that, I mean guest experience. And your company, I think, was one of the ringleaders of delivering a guest experience in this industry. I sort of wonder if some of that came from the story you're telling about Jeremy and just hospitality background in general, understanding in the beginning. You guys started a company called Glad to Have You, and was the leader, the first company that delivered really an app or whatever for guest experience that I can remember in this space. And eventually you ended up selling that to HomeAway. And I think that was sort of something that I wanted to give you kudos on, that you were sort of a visionary on that front at 360 Blue. So if you could speak to that for a second, I'd like to know what your thoughts are when it comes to the guest experience related to these cancellations and all the things that you're having to adapt to on the guest side during this wild time. And I think Jason might have went pink. So I see his screen right now. It's pink. So we'll come back to that. But let's start with you, Ashley, on the cancellation side, the guest side. Why don't you tell us how it's been for you? Obviously, you're a company that focuses a lot on the guests. How hard was this to handle those calls, and what have they been like?
It's been a lot. It's been a whole lot. So the information constantly and rapidly changing. We didn't know how to prepare for it. We initially thought that this was going to be a 15, maybe a 30-day problem. And then very quickly, over the course of maybe even 72 hours, that timeline was revised 3 or 4 times. And before we knew it, there were timelines suggesting it could be an 18-month problem. thrown out there, and that did result in an influx of cancellations across the board. And we're still, really seeing a lot of people cancel, and a lot of the key data reports that Jason has shared in his webinars are consistent in saying the same things, particularly in Florida or other beach vacation destinations where we are seeing that people don't have a lot of confidence or any confidence in May. And then the first couple of weeks of June, we're seeing the same thing. Now, the last couple of weeks of June, you start to see that confidence build up a little bit. We're starting to see new bookings take place for those last few weeks. And then July, so far, fingers crossed, knock on wood, seems to be very, very slightly impacted, but not nearly as significant as we've seen for late March, April, May, and early June.
Yeah, I definitely have heard rumblings of that as well, as far as the summer bookings still happening or starting to pick up a little bit. And once Jason figures out a way to get his camera back on, we can start talking about data, and obviously that's his go-to thing. So Ashley, let me just ask you this. I mean, how do you guys plan to, the name of our show is Stronger, and the idea was to find ways to come out of this stronger, find ways to sort of upgrade what you're doing, or have new processes, or have new, sort of, I would say maybe a new structure within your organization, maybe more organized. What type of things are you looking to do to try to come out of this stronger if you take advantage of the time you have?
Yeah, so we at this point have made the decision to keep all employees on board. So we are one of the lucky few at this point that has not had to make layoffs or furloughs, and I certainly understand why companies are having to make those very hard decisions at this point. But one of the things that I'm hoping we will be able to take out of this, and one of the things that will make us stronger, is just the morale that our team has, and the way that they have rallied behind us and the decisions that have been made from the leadership level in an effort to fight to keep this company alive has been really incredible to me. And we are regularly celebrating the small win. So we'll get, a $4,000 booking, and we will celebrate that booking, and motivating the team as much as they can. Even if we get a tiny piece of positive feedback from a guest, we're sharing that company wide. We're having weekly meetings with the entire staff who are calling in via Zoom or Hangouts, and we are sharing what we're calling stories of hope. So a homeowner or a guest or a neighbor or something that feels hopeful. We're asking everybody to share those stories, and then on our call on Fridays, we're sharing those stories of hope, and a lot of it has been really helpful in encouraging the team to see the light at the end of this tunnel. So I think we'll come away stronger because we're propping each other up, because we've become the support system that everybody in this company needs right now. And it's offering that little bit of hope in this very, very dark place.
I can relate to that. We at Streamline have, I think everyone can probably relate to that's trying to keep the teamwork. It's funny. I think that we may interact more, during these times on a personal level with all these different Zoom meetings, and seeing people in their houses and their pets and all of this sort of stuff. It's interesting to be able to sort of spend this time where we're on the screen talking things out. I mean, we interact obviously, but obviously we're jumping around from one thing to the next at the office, but it seems like we're fighting to do the same thing, right? Where you try to build camaraderie and stick together. I mean, we had a drawing contest, I think a couple of days ago, where everyone had to draw a picture of themselves, and some of these things were amazing, but it's great to see the camaraderie. And I think that's probably something that everyone's trying to focus on. And I love the small win side of it for sure. Jason, you're back. Oh, your audio is not back. Let's see if you can get that on real quick. Well, while he finds a way to get that audio back, I do want to say that we're one of the lucky companies so far too that hasn't had to let people go. Obviously, we have a partner in Habit IQ that's from a financial perspective gives us a lot of stability and a lot of those sort of things. I am proud of our partner in Habit. Just contributed a ton of money to the advocacy funds of our industry and all that sort of stuff. So I'm very proud of our company too, trying to do the right things during this time and contribute to our industry, which obviously is in a situation that we need to help in every direction we can. So that's something on our end I did want to talk about because it just got announced and I was very happy about it. Jason, are you new to technology, or I'm just kidding? So Ashley, let's just stick with you for a little bit since Jason's still trying to figure it out. Why don't you give us an idea of how the owner relationships have been? Obviously, that's a situation on top of the guest that people aren't talking about quite as much because it hasn't really gone there yet as heavily. But why don't you give us an idea on that?
Yeah, so we have been very communicative with our owners, which has been very helpful. And the majority of these owners are running their own businesses or in very similar situations. So they're having to deal with their own struggles. So for the most part, we've had owners be extremely kind about our constant pivoting or having to revise our policies or, showing empathy to certain guest situations. It's honestly been a fairly easy conversation. There have been a couple one-off exceptions, but for the most part, our owners have been really great to deal with. And we've received a lot of very positive feedback just about our ongoing communications. And even though we may send one email that says one thing 1 hour, and then the very next hour an executive order comes out and contradicts that message, we're sending those constantly. And so as long as we are turning that information around as quickly as possible, it seems that our owners are appreciative of that and the effort. It's really all you can do at this point, I think.
Yeah, so you haven't really had much of they're just being pretty understanding.
Yeah, Jason's in the room.
Oh, Jason, 6 feet.
I know.
When it comes to technology, nobody does it better than
us. I'm kidding about that. So why don't you chime in a little bit on from a guest experience? I know Ashley covered it, but being the pioneer and glad to have you and guest experience. Do you have any thoughts on what it's been like dealing with guests as well?
The only thing I can think of, going back to your leadership question to Ashley, because I think it's where Jeremy started us and where Ashley kind of picked us up, and it's really permeated both companies. And that is, we've always had the attitude of, try to figure out what the right answer is as opposed to trying to figure out the way everybody else is doing it. And I don't think it's necessarily, led to, some super unique way of doing things other than just making sure each time a big decision comes up, whether that's, starting new technology like with GLAD or with Key Data or, just the way Ashley's been taking us through this COVID experience. It's just sitting down and trying to say, how should we approach this, right? What are guests really looking for? What should the experience be? Not what's everybody else doing, what tools are available, just kind of getting a blank whiteboard up every time and saying, how should we approach it? And when you ask her about her leadership, I think, she talked about not being the smartest person in the room. The peanut gallery side, watching her for the last 8 years lead the company, I think the thing that she does best, and I don't know if it's an attribute that women bring to the table more than men, or if it's just her leadership style, but it's an ability to get up in front of the group every time and just say, I don't have all the answers. I'm just going to sit down with you guys. I'm going to be extremely transparent, and we're going to hear from everybody, and we're going to let the best ideas come to the top. And we're going to be open and honest and fair and just do our damn best to get to the best spot we can get. I think that's defined her leadership style. And I think that's really what's helped us. I don't know if innovate's the right word, but it's helped us come up with some ideas that have been helpful for us.
Absolutely. And it's clear. I've seen your team. I've seen what goes on over there. It is an impressive operation. I do think that I wanted to dig into data a little bit with you, Jason, the fun stuff. I know that typically you're forced to have a bunch of visuals and
Right.
and talk through charts and graphs and X and Y axes and all that sort of stuff. Let's just talk off the top of your head here. Where do you see, I mean, what story is the data telling you when it comes to this crisis?
I mean, it's telling us a couple things. One is it's telling us we need to look at it daily, right? It's changing every time we log in. You know, we update the reports, and there's a different trend, whether we expected it or not. It's always eye-opening, right? It's always easy to look back and explain why something happened, but I think the need to watch it on a frequent basis has surprised me. Obviously, it surprised everything, but everyone. But it you know, really for the last month, it seems like every time, you know, the president has stepped up to the podium, it's had the ability to cause a shift in all of our lives, right? If the world's expecting this thing to clear up, you know, at X point in time, and the president says, "Oh, you know, we're expecting it to be sooner," you can see an immediate shift in booking trends and cancellations. At the same time, if you wake up in the morning, headlines are, "Boy, it could be August," or, you know, it could be 2022 before this thing comes back. You can literally see that shifting in people's behavior. So one of the biggest takeaways has just been the need for us to, you know, have up-to-date information in our hands. And then, you know, the biggest question we've been getting is just, what does summer look like? Like, when is this thing going to end? And, you know, fortunately, you can see the sentiment of, you know, the kind of the consumer's expectations more so than what our expectations are by looking at the data. And so we can all see the gap that we are, how far off we are right now from where we're supposed to be. It's a little bit different from every market, but we're all at the bottom of the trough. And so the real question that we're watching is how far out does that go, right? Is it going to correct at the end of June or the end of July or the end of August? And we can see for some markets, you know, the consumers are telling us they feel a lot more confident about that market a lot sooner, right? So like Outer Banks is one of the markets that stands out in my mind, where, you know, if you look at where the lines cross, the kind of the proverbial occupancy lines, where we're supposed to be and where we are, the market is saying they have more confidence in coming back to the Outer Banks a little sooner than what I see in other markets, where you see like it's really into, you know, August before you see those lines crossing. So we're just, you know, we're still at that point where the line has been moving further and further out, or kind of that pain point, as you can see, you know, the injury, if you will, still been extending out a couple of days every few days. And we just now seeing the point where it seems like it's stopping, and we're waiting for it to start to slide back, meaning people are starting to book some of summer. And, you know, we can have all the data in the world. I still walk in the office and ask Ashley, you know, how's it looking? And yesterday, she said, you know, we're starting to see some of those bookings, you know, for late June and early July. And so a lot of times I'm going back to the national data to say, is that reflective of what we're hearing here on the ground? And we are starting to see that. So my sense, long answer to a short question, is I feel like we're kind of at the bottom, and we're right in those first few days where we're going to start to see pretty much a national level of bookings start to peak back up, you know, certainly for July. And I think we're all hoping for those last 2 weeks in June. I haven't seen any sunshine when it comes to the first 2 weeks in June.
Yeah, you're one of these companies that probably has visibility into the mountain destinations and the beach destinations. But I mean, obviously you see a lot more from the key data side, but as far as the 360 side, it's the mountain destinations really sort of got fortunate that their main season just finished. The summer destinations are the ones that we're really crossing our fingers on and hoping that there's some sort of turnaround sooner than later. And it looks like the guests are, my take is, you know, the people are dying to get out and travel. They're dying to get out of their house. They want to book at the first sign of light. They're gonna book, and it's gonna bounce back like a rubber band. And hopefully something happens here soon, whether it's treatments, whether it's vaccines, whether it's, I mean, obviously some of that stuff might take a long time, but if there's, you know, some way to bounce back, I know the market's ready for it.
That's right. And we did see, you know, call it a leading indicator, call it whatever you want. We did see that March 13th timeframe was a day or two after kind of the world collectively decided we shouldn't jump on cruise ships or travel to Costa Rica with the kids for our first week of spring break like we had all planned, or, for those who could go to Paris or wherever the case may be. And immediately everybody kind of on the same day, I forget, it was a Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, it was the 13th.
13. The phones went from like for Ashley's team, like 60-something% booked. I'll make up numbers because I don't know if she knows them. But we were in the 60% booked, and then the next day we were 100% booked. And we saw that across all key data as well, where like there were certain markets that had the capacity to bring in that drive-in traffic last minute. It had affluent enough guests to where as soon as the collective wisdom became clear that we shouldn't go on those vacations, we need to take our kids somewhere else, they all rushed to certain markets. And so if you look at the data that Key Data is putting out on that 3/13 time frame, you saw a ton of markets just see one real big significant spike. And then I think that's when President Trump said it might be August, and then we all saw it go right back down. But a lot of the people I'm talking to are looking at that 3/13 spike as a leading indicator of the markets that might be well positioned to see some of the first bounce back. Time will tell us whether or not that's true, but it was a lot of the drive-in markets, and it was a lot of the more affluent markets that saw the bigger spikes. And so there is some anticipation that might be where we see the first signs of recovery.
Let's hope. I know that it's a lot of people are trying to hang on and push through it and keep hope alive. And I think that the more we communicate and the more we hope, it's going to help get us through those times. So I wanted to ask you from a 360 Blue perspective, are you at this point looking at more opportunities and trying to look around? I know you've made a couple acquisitions recently. I mean, is this the type of situation from an investor perspective where you're looking at opportunities, or mostly just sort of taking some time to deal with the initial crisis?
Yeah, I think we're always looking, right? We're always considering our options, whether that may be to buy or to sell, and determining what's going to be the best option for us at the time. And so we're always looking and get excited about looking and the prospect of what that could look like post coronavirus, especially. So we like to just keep the options open and take anybody that's interested in putting their business out there as a possible acquisition. We certainly enjoy vetting those opportunities and deciding what's going to be a good fit for us.
It's fun to listen to some of the M&A guys talk about what the post-apocalyptic time is going to be like. I hope everybody's on their feet and doing good and back to the fundamentally strong businesses that we have. But it'll be interesting to watch and see what those that are poised to acquire will do in the next year.
Yeah, we just, we obviously hope for everyone to keep their business alive and just know that even if it's tough, I mean, it's going to bounce back stronger than ever. I mean, just like we said in the first episode, everybody wants to travel right now. Everybody wants to get out of their house and go somewhere with their family and friends and have some fun. So if you keep hanging on and it does make a turn, we can all reap the rewards from that. Did you have any thoughts for anybody, Ashley or Jason? I mean, you guys have been wonderful guests. We really appreciate you joining us, and we think that your company, both Key Data and 360 Blue, are really amazing leaders in this industry, and definitely leaders on data. I think you were the first major company to really tap into all the systems from an API perspective and get that sort of root data, and then Ashley and 360 Blue, I think are seen as sort of a shining light in the industry from a company perspective. Do you have any thoughts for the audience? This is going to be shared on LinkedIn or whatever. So this is your time to let anybody know anything you'd like.
Yeah, I mean, for 360, we are an open book, like I said before, and we don't have any secrets. We don't hold anything close to our chest. And so I want to encourage the people in this industry, and I want to be a sounding board or an advisor to anybody in this industry that's looking for some guidance or assistance. And that's how I've been able to help make 360 Blue successful, is I've leaned on the resources and the community of the other vacation rental companies in our market and outside of our market. And I want to be the same resource to other people. So if people have questions or if people have concerns and want to know how we're handling certain situations, I would love for people to contact me directly. I'm more than happy to be available as the resource to them, just like several people have been available as resources to me.
Right on.
Yeah, two things. One is we realize we're in a very unique position with the co-op, if you will, of data that we've been able to put together with just everybody participating in this key data experiment together. And we realize everybody's in a spot right now. And so if there's anything we can do from a data perspective to help anybody out, whatever the circumstances are, we kind of feel like it's at a minimum our obligation to do our part for the space. And so if there's something you need from us, or if there's something you don't have your arms around or want to understand, and you feel like the data can provide you, like Ashley said, feel free to give us a call and we will do our damnedest to get you whatever you need to help you get through it. And then I was reading an article this morning, just advice for entrepreneurs in this space. And it was 3 pieces of advice: manage cash, and manage cash. And I know from watching Ashley, she spends her day in front of her employees and her owners and her guests, trying, to lead with empathy and humility and distinction. But when she's not and she's back, at her desk, she's working on cash flow, and she's got her hands around it every single day, and is always able to give us any numbers that Jeremy and I want to see or understand. And so, if this is a time where your accounting's not strong and you haven't really gotten in front of and you don't have a good feel for your cash flow, I think it's about the only way we get in trouble in this time frame. The fundamentals of everybody's business is just as strong as it was before this thing hit us, and they're going to be just as strong afterwards. You just gotta, you gotta manage your cash flow and manage your communications with your people. And I think you've done that as well as any time in our history through this crisis. And I think they'll look back at the companies and judge them based on how you did during the crisis. And those that were open and transparent and communicative, the owners will remember and the guests will remember, and you'll be stronger because of it. So I'm really hopeful, like you said at the beginning, Brett, like we were talking about offline, that we're really going to come out stronger. I can see the big moniker there behind you. I think it's very well phrased, because I do think on the back end of this, all of our companies are going to be stronger and better for it. And we've talked a lot about how much we've learned in the last month compared to the last 10 years about ourselves and about companies and financials and leadership. And so there's definitely going to be some pluses that come out of it that we'll all be thankful for in the long run.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that day. I'm looking forward to the day, and I think everybody is. And I think that keeping our eyes on the light at the end of the tunnel and remembering that we have to try to come out stronger is, and whether that's as an industry, whether it's individually in our own companies, I think that we're really well positioned to, as all of us are, to really look in. You saw something happen with TaylorMade. I think it was interesting is a lot of the managers, they had to step down and move back and start doing a lot of the day-to-day routines that typically they might have someone have, right? And it's like, those are little steps that you talk about, small wins. I think coming out of this, you'll have more empathy for your employees. You'll understand what their, exactly what their routines are, how to help them better. So there's a lot of different things, and I certainly hope that we get there soon. And I want to thank you again for being amazing guests, amazing people, and good luck with the Saunder Project. Hopefully we can drive some attention that way, because I love what you're doing there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being a positive voice in the space as always. We really appreciate you putting these on and continuing to do what you've been doing.
Absolutely. All right, Ashley, Jason, you're the best. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Brad.
Bye.
Take care.